All right, get ready for a deep dive. One that's out of this world.
Oh,
Literally.
this is gonna be good.
You wanted to know more about the flat Earth theory. So we've been reviewing some articles and discussions to unpack it all. It's pretty wild.
Okay.
Like most of us, I learned that the Earth is a sphere. But there's this whole community of people who believe it's flat.
A lot of people.
What do they see that we don't?
That's a great question.
Let's find out.
Yeah, let's do it. It's fascinating. This whole idea has persisted for centuries, even with all of the scientific advancements we've made. It really makes you think about how we all form beliefs and
Right.
what we find compelling.
Okay, so first things first, paint me a picture. What does their model of the Earth actually look like?
Okay, so imagine a giant disk, like a pizza planet from those old sci-fi movies.
Okay.
And the North Pole is right at the center.
Okay.
Now picture Antarctica, not as a continent at the bottom, but as a massive ice wall that circles the entire disk.
Whoa.
Kind of like a giant retaining wall holding the oceans in.
An ice wall. All right, that's definitely different. But what about the sun and the moon? Where do they fit in?
Well, this is where things get even more curious. Flat earthers believe that the sun and moon are much smaller than scientists say, and they're way closer to the Earth.
Okay.
So think of them like spotlights moving across the sky, illuminating different areas to create day and night.
So no more Earth rotating, just these cosmic spotlights doing a dance.
Exactly.
Interesting.
And they propose that the sun and moon also move laterally, which explains the seasons.
I see, bud. I'm already wondering, wouldn't that mess up things like polar days and nights, where the sun doesn't set for months at a time?
You bring up a good point. Flat earthers, they address that directly. They claim that the South Pole, being an ice wall and not a true pole, wouldn't experience those extended daylight periods like the North Pole does.
So they have an explanation, but it's certainly different from what we typically learn. It makes you think about how different perspectives
Yeah.
can lead to entirely different interpretations of the same phenomenon.
But didn't people figure out the Earth was round ages ago?
It's easy to assume that, but
Yeah.
the flat Earth model was actually the prevailing belief for centuries.
Mhm.
I mean, if you think about it, when you look out at the horizon, it does appear flat.
That's true.
Even some early philosophers and cultures supported this view.
So how did the idea of a spherical Earth finally gain traction? It must have been a huge shift in thinking.
It was a gradual process.
Yeah.
And it really highlights how scientific understanding evolves over time.
Right.
Thinkers like Pythagoras, way back in the 6th century BC, started questioning the flat Earth model based on their observations. And then Aristotle, in the 4th century BC, provided more concrete evidence for a spherical Earth.
Okay.
For example, he noticed that during lunar eclipses, the Earth's shadow on the moon was always curved, which would be the case if the Earth were flat. Oh, that makes sense. But even with those early observations, it still took centuries for the spherical Earth model to be widely accepted.
It did. It wasn't until explorers began circumnavigating the globe that the evidence became irrefutable.
And even then, some people still weren't convinced.
Yeah. And what's fascinating is that this shift wouldn't have happened if people hadn't questioned the prevailing wisdom. It reminds us to always be open to challenging what we think we know.
That's a great point. It seems like curiosity and challenging the status quo are at the heart of scientific progress. Okay, fast forward to today. With all our advancements, you'd think that the flat Earth idea would have faded away. But to my surprise, it seems like it's actually making a comeback.
It is.
Yeah.
You're right. And that's perhaps the most intriguing aspect of this whole phenomenon. It's not just a handful of people holding on to outdated beliefs.
Right.
We're seeing a growing community, including some highly educated individuals who are drawn to this idea.
That's what I find so curious about it all. It's not just a lack of scientific understanding. It's something else. What is it about this theory that resonates with people, especially in this day and age?
Well, there are a few potential factors at play here. For some, it might be a distrust of authority or mainstream narratives. The flat Earth theory allows them to position themselves as free thinkers, challenging the official story.
So there's an element of rebellion and independent thinking involved.
Exactly. And for others, it could be the allure of belonging to a community.
Hmm.
The Flat Earth Society, for example, is experiencing a resurgence.
Really?
Yeah. It offers a sense of camaraderie and shared purpose for those who feel like they're on the outside looking in.
That's interesting how those social and psychological factors intertwine with the scientific aspects of the theory. But what about the evidence? What do they use to support their claims?
Well, they often start by rejecting some fundamental principles of modern science, particularly gravity. They argue that it doesn't exist in the way we've been taught.
No gravity. But how do they explain why things fall down? Or why we don't just float off into space?
Well, one common explanation they offer is that the Earth is constantly accelerating upwards, creating the sensation of gravity, like the feeling you get when an elevator suddenly goes up.
I can kind of see how that analogy would make sense, but it still doesn't explain why we don't just fly off into space eventually. What other arguments do they use?
Well, they point to things they believe contradict the spherical Earth model. For example, you know how airplane flight paths, especially long-haul flights, often take seemingly roundabout routes?
Yeah, I've definitely noticed that while looking at flight maps, why don't they just fly in a straight line?
Well, on a spherical Earth, the shortest distance between 2 points isn't always a straight line on a flat map. It's a curved path along the Earth's surface. But flat earthers interpret this differently.
Okay.
They see those curved flight paths as evidence that Antarctica isn't a continent at the bottom of a globe, but rather a giant ice wall that planes have to fly around.
So they're taking something we see as evidence of a spherical Earth and reinterpreting it to fit their flat Earth model.
Exactly. And this focus on flight paths is just one example. They also point to things like clouds appearing behind the moon in some photos, as evidence that the moon is much closer than scientists claim.
Okay, so they're really looking for anything that seems to challenge the conventional view. But what about all the images of Earth from space? I mean, we've seen countless photos and videos that clearly show a round planet.
Well, flat earthers tend to dismiss those as fabrications created by governments or some higher power that's controlling information. They argue that what we see is manipulated to maintain the illusion of a spherical Earth.
So there's a strong element of distrust and conspiracy woven into their beliefs.
Absolutely. And that brings us to a core element of the flat Earth theory, the conspiracy angle.
It sounds like it's not just a difference of opinion about the shape of the Earth. There's this whole other layer of questioning authority and believing in a hidden truth.
Yeah, it's definitely not just about the science. For a lot of flat earthers, it really comes down to trust. They feel like they've been lied to about something so fundamental, like the very nature of our world, and that can lead them to question everything else.
Like they're saying, if they could deceive us about this, what else are they hiding?
Exactly. And that suspicion can extend to all sorts of institutions and authorities. It creates a framework where any information that comes from those sources is automatically suspect.
But what's so dangerous about a flat Earth? Why would anyone go to all this trouble to create this elaborate deception?
That's the question. And even within the flat Earth community, there are a lot of different answers to that. One line of thinking is that if the Earth is flat, then it has to have a boundary, an edge.
Okay.
And then what lies beyond that edge? Is there more land, other civilizations, unknown entities?
It's like that age-old fear of the unknown.
Exactly. And that idea can be both intriguing and frightening, you know? It taps into this human curiosity about the universe, but also our anxieties about what we might find out there.
Okay, I get that. But wouldn't scientists and explorers have found this edge by now? I mean, we've explored so much of the planet.
Well, flat earthers believe that Antarctica, that massive ice wall in their model, is actually what's preventing us from reaching the edge. And they like to point to the fact that there are restrictions on exploration in certain parts of Antarctica, which fuels the idea that something is being hidden there.
So Antarctica becomes this mysterious barrier, this forbidden zone.
Right. And it becomes the focal point for a lot of speculation and conspiracy theories.
Which brings us to the big question. What do they think is on the other side of that ice wall? What's out there?
This is where things get really wild, and there's no single unified answer.
Okay.
It really depends on who you ask and what specific interpretation of the flat Earth model they subscribe to. But we can talk about some of the more common ideas.
I'm all ears.
Okay. One possibility, and this might sound crazy, is that the entire universe, with all of its stars and galaxies, is actually contained within the flat Earth disk.
Whoa.
It's like everything we see in the night sky is actually relatively close to us and projected onto this dome-like structure above the disk.
So it's kind of like living inside of a snow globe.
Kind of, yeah. It makes the universe feel a lot smaller
Mm.
and more contained. And it plays into this idea that our perception of reality is being limited, that we're being kept from seeing the true nature of things.
So in this model, what's beyond the ice wall? Is it just the end of everything, like falling off the edge of a map?
Not necessarily. Some flat earthers believe there could be more land, maybe even other civilizations existing beyond the ice wall.
So the ice wall is like a boundary
Yeah,
between our known world and this realm of unexplored possibilities.
exactly.
Yeah.
And that idea can be both exciting and a little bit unnerving. It raises all these questions about what else might be out there and why we're being kept from knowing about it.
Okay, so that's one pretty wild possibility. What are some other ideas?
Well, another concept, which
Hmm.
gets even more mind-bending, is this idea of multiple flat Earths.
Multiple Earths.
Yeah. Imagine a series of these flat Earth disks, each with its own sun and moon and stars, all connected by Antarctica.
Wait, so it's like a whole network of flat Earths, like stepping through a portal in Antarctica. Take you to another one.
That's the idea. And this idea is often tied into the concept of parallel universes, the idea that there are multiple versions of reality
Yeah.
existing at the same time.
That definitely sounds like we're venturing into sci-fi territory here. But I can see how these ideas would be appealing to someone who's already questioning the fundamental nature of reality.
Hmm.
If the Earth can be flat, then why not multiple Earths or parallel universes?
Right. It's like once you open the door to questioning one seemingly fundamental truth, it can be hard to close it. It opens up this whole new way of seeing the world and the universe.
I have to admit, even though I don't subscribe to the flat Earth theory, these ideas are definitely sparking my imagination. Makes you think about the limits of our knowledge and what mysteries might still be out there waiting to be discovered.
That's the power of exploring these alternative perspectives, even the ones that might seem outlandish at first. It challenges us to think critically, question our assumptions, and maybe even rediscover a sense of wonder about the world around us.
Well said. So we've gone from a flat Earth with an ice wall to multiple Earths and parallel universes. It seems like the flat Earth theory isn't just about the shape of our planet. It's about questioning everything we think we know, about reality itself.
It's a complex mix of science, skepticism, and this desire to find a deeper meaning in the universe.
I think our listener who wanted to know more about this is definitely getting a taste of how deep this rabbit hole goes.
We've only scratched the surface.
All right, let's take a step back from the edge of the flat Earth and try to sum up what we've learned. We started with this basic model, a flat disk surrounded by a massive ice wall, with a miniature sun and moon acting like spotlights in the sky.
Right. And we explored some of the evidence they use to support their beliefs. Things like those curved flight paths, clouds appearing behind the moon, and their rejection of gravity as we understand it.
We can't forget about that underlying thread of, distrust and conspiracy. This
Yeah.
belief that there's this massive effort underway to conceal the true shape of the Earth,
Right.
to control information, or hide what might lie beyond the ice wall.
Yeah. It's a potent mix of ideas, and it really speaks to our human desire to make sense of the world and to question what we're told.
It's like they're taking the idea of thinking outside the box to a
Yeah.
whole new level.
Exactly. They're challenging us to consider alternative explanations, even if they seem far-fetched.
I'm still firmly in the spherical Earth camp, but I have to admit that this has been a thought-provoking experience.
It has.
It highlights how different perspectives can lead to drastically different interpretations of the same information.
It is. It's a reminder that what we consider to be truth is often shaped by our beliefs and our experiences, and the information we're exposed to.
It also makes you wonder about the limits of our own knowledge. What if there are things about the universe that we simply haven't grasped yet?
That's the beauty of science. It's constantly evolving. New discoveries are being made all the time, challenging old assumptions, pushing the boundaries of our understanding.
So to our listener who wanted to explore the flat Earth theory, I hope we provided a good overview of what they believe, why they believe it, and some of the arguments they use.
And maybe even sparked a little curiosity in you, even if you don't agree with the flat Earth theory. It's worth considering those bigger questions it raises about our place in the universe, the nature of truth, the importance of critical thinking.
Absolutely. So keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep those deep dives coming. Until next time, stay curious.